we have an internal body clock, 5 a.m., 11 a.m., 5 p.m., 11 p.m. It's just like, if you're sleeping, you wake up because you want to know what those advisories say. So that's what we're going to check in on right now with Craig. How's it looking, Craig?
Hey, that is so true, right? I was waking up all last week at 4:45 a.m. and I didn't even have an alarm set. So, yeah, that's so true. So there is some news in the advisory, and we're feeling better about the news for where the storm is going. We've already dealt with the storm. The Keys have already been hit, and it's been bad. And from what I can see, just based on meteorological observations, it looks like as we get down there and view it, it's not going to be pretty at all. The southeast coast of Florida, it has been hit as well in terms of a Category 1 type of storm here. We had winds. I never saw one report, and there may be one report of a Category 2 type of winds, but never one report. So Category 1, 75 to 95 miles an hour, and that the wind has to blow that hard. I believe it's for 1 minute at about 30 feet. So I didn't see that, but that being said, the weather is starting to improve from south to north. And when we used to do that timeline thing, and we're going to do it again here, as the storm moved north, I kept saying, so it's then at this time it's going to be improving here, and then improving here, and then improving here from south to north. And that, in fact, is the case. So let's go right now to the advisory, which is on Weather C. So there we go. And here's the latest. And here's why we're feeling better about those who are in front of the storm, those who have not been impacted directly yet by the core or the hurricane-force winds. Now, it's not a great situation, but it is not as dire as it looked at one point in time. So the 5 o'clock advisory here has winds of 110 miles an hour, and that makes it Category 2. So the storm is slowly weakening. The pressure is still very, very low, which means that that really sharp high wind area in the core is winding down. It's coming down, and the winds are spreading out. That's good, but it's also bad because that means that the winds of hurricane force are also growing, and they're spreading out too. Now, they're not spreading out to South Florida because, and let me change one thing real quickly here. Okay, so they're not spreading out so far that they're going to get back to us because the storm is also moving north, and now it's moving north at 14 miles an hour. So now it's on its way north and more quickly. So the area of hurricane force winds just west of Miami-Dade and Broward and Palm Beach County. In fact, if you based the winds on this graphic, the hurricane force winds would be over the Everglades, and the metro areas would be in this orange area, which we've talked about. That's the hurricane force gusts, which we saw today, and mostly tropical storm force winds, although we did see some Category 1 winds in there. And then outside of that, the orange area, the yellow area over here, offshore and over the Keys, that's the tropical storm force winds. That's 40 to 74 miles an hour. So right now, 5 miles north of Naples. So basically Naples in the eye there for that reference point. All right, so let's go a little bit forward in time here. And the time's up here, so let's stop right there. So this is midnight here tonight. The hurricane force winds are pulling away from South Florida. The tropical storm force winds are still over us, so it's still going to be very windy, and it's going to be gusty. But these gusts up to hurricane force, they are now decreasing too. So the weather goes from the windiest to the least windiest as you go from north to south. So Palm Beach County, the winds are still pretty gusty at midnight tonight. Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, the winds are in the 30 to 50 mile an hour range. And Miami-Dade, the winds are in the 30 to 40 mile an hour range. There's still some gusts because it's a big storm. And then as we get into the Keys now, the winds are in the 20 to 30 mile an hour range. So let's go forward here. But, oh, wait, stop, I'm sorry. So this back position here, this is now, the forecast is Category 1. So still, the storm is forecast to move to the west-northwest. But you may remember there was some thinking by one model that was very, very reliable with the storm, called the European, that said the storm was going to go up here along the west coast, maintain its intensity, and could be a Category 4 bearing down on Tampa Bay. Really the worst case scenario for Tampa Bay because of the storm surge threat, because of the wind threat, because of all of that. But now that the storm came over land here as opposed to maybe over here or right up there, now it's going to be traveling over land. The center's over land. As the center goes over land, it decays, as we call it, weakens. And so we've got Category 1 forecast now. So now the winds up here are what we went through today. So Miami's event today is going to be similar to the West Coast of Florida event tonight. The midnight, there's a 3 a.m. time frame. The big difference here, and the really big difference here, is that we've dealt with some hurricanes down here. It has been since 1921 was the last time there was a major hurricane hit, and in 2004 Francis went across the state, but it was a tropical storm at that time. So there's still going to be a lot of damage in the Tampa Bay area. There's still going to be some storm surge flooding. It could be rather severe because the water has been pushed out so much and it still has to come back in. And there's still going to be a big problem here up on the West Coast and through Central Florida as the storm moves away from us. But it's not going to be as bad as it could have been because the storm made landfall near Marco Island an hour ago and is now traveling over land. Could it wobble back to the left and get back over the water? It's a possibility, but the storm is already winding down. The inside, the core of the storm is already winding down because it's over land, and also there's increasing wind shear now starting to blow on the storm, and so that's also weakening. So let's go further north because I want to go to the end of the track because it's pretty crazy that the storm goes all the way up here. So here it is, 2 a.m. is the forecast, Tallahassee, so that's 2 p.m. rather, tomorrow afternoon, Tallahassee, with still some tropical storm force winds. Look how big it is. The storm field, wind field, stretches from almost Pensacola all the way to almost Charleston here. So it's a huge wind field. And because it's such a big wind field, even tomorrow it's still going to be breezy here. But what we went through is it's not going to be like that at all. So now we're at the 2 p.m. time frame. So let's go just a little more in time here. And here we go. There's Atlanta. And so we're at 10 p.m. on Monday. And Atlanta's in tropical storm force winds. Atlanta, so far away from the coast, expecting tropical storm force winds, and I believe that Atlanta is under a tropical storm watch or warning. I heard that. I was so focused on us, I'm sorry I didn't pay attention to Atlanta. Warning, okay, tropical storm warning for Atlanta. Now, all of this area gets winds from time to time, but this is a big wind field. This is going to be a tree knocking down storm all the way up the coast. There's going to be massive power outages. It's just going to be a very big mess. And as we already know, a very uncomfortable mess because already we're hot, it's humid, it's just very uncomfortable. So let's go to the end of the track here. I think we're almost to it. And here we are on Tuesday night, Monday night rather, and then Tuesday and then Wednesday. And finally, it's still a tropical depression in northern Mississippi, the forecast is at least. And then finally it winds down over western Kentucky and stuff. So a crazy storm. But there's one takeaway I want to tell you, and it's back down here where the cone is still taking it kind of west-northwest. And that takeaway is that we have to keep our eyes on this one feeder band. Thank you. So it's going in that direction. It's not going due north. And so when it's here, this feeder band that I'm going to show you is off of our coast right now. But as the storm moves in a north-northwest direction, it's possible that that feeder band could be pulled with it back over us. These things are really hard to predict because the feeder band, the primary feeder band, tends to want to radiate away from the storm, and if the storm's moving in a different direction, it may pull it pulls it along with it, but to say that it's going to come back over us, it's hard to say. Right now the main feeder band is offshore. It runs basically from Deerfield Beach and then offshore Miami Beach and well offshore the Keys. So that's kind of the sum of it there. We went through a hurricane today. South Florida experienced a Category 1 hurricane, maybe barely low-end Category 2. The west coast of Florida, the Keys, lower Keys especially, experienced a Category 4 hurricane today. And the west coast of Florida experienced a Category 3 hurricane today. In the Marco Island area, or at least a very high-end Category 2. And it's a huge storm. And so the weather, as we go through the night, is going to continue to improve now. The winds continuing to come down in Miami-Dade, and in about 2 hours, you'll notice that the winds are coming down in Broward. Still some gusts and things like that, but improvement. So that's where we stand with the 5 o'clock advisory.